All right, everyone, we are live. Welcome back. Trump is guilty. Oh, what's Trump guilty of? Do people really need me to read the list? Welcome. Make sure you smash the like button when you get in. The likes are important because if you drop a like, I will get back into your algorithm. So for that reason, it's a good idea to drop a like on the stream. But we're going to get into the mix again today here. So Trump is guilty of extortion in the Ukraine, extorting the Ukraine and the Ukrainian people. We're going to go through all these details today. 34 felonies, sexual abuse, defamation, defrauding the USA, causing the Capitol riot, mishandling the pandemic, financial corruption, obstruction of justice, business fraud, abuse of power, anti-science, blatant DEI hypocrisy, and much more. As always, I'm sure we're going to hear from a lot of Trump apologists today. And we'll see how they can answer for these particular issues. Robert Trost comes in hard right off the bat. How did this fucking clown get into my algorithm in the first place? Yeah, I mean, because you perhaps want to just be hit with things that agree with you and that agree with Trump. Is that what you want to hear from? You don't want to hear from guys like me that might disagree with you in good faith in a helpful way? Let's hear you defend against some of these things that Trump is obviously guilty of. We're going to be doing it today, folks. Smash that like button. Welcome. Quahu says they don't care. Yeah, there are some of the hardcore Trumpers that are so cult captured that they won't hear anything, right? But there are other people who are like, they thought that it was a good idea to vote for Trump because for some reason they thought Trump was the lesser of two evils, which is baffling, right? This is going to go down in history as probably the biggest oversight by reasonable people voting for Trump, thinking that he is less of an evil than voting for Kamala Harris. Can you imagine? Ivor Lewis says, you're a media parrot. Really? I mean, most of what I see in the media is actually stuff that's quite sympathetic to what Trump's doing. I see a lot of that. I try to digest media that disagrees with me more often than try to find media that agrees with me. That's what you should all do. Ethan Moore says, I thank you for your efforts, Trav. Oh, of course. I live for this stuff. I love it. Welcome back. Yeah, Trump is Putin's new bodyguard, so that's interesting. So yeah, I read the list of what Trump's guilty of. This shouldn't be a shock to anyone at this point. This is all well documented. So yeah, let's get into the thing that's bothering me the most. We have a nation that is our ally in the Ukraine, and they are at war because they are defending themselves from an invading Russia. And Trump and many Trump supporters think that it's fine and dandy to weasel in there when the Ukraine is at its lowest and most vulnerable and commit extortion. It's obviously extortion. You can say at this point that you're just okay with extortion on a global scale, on a geopolitical scale. You can just say you're okay with it, but you shouldn't be able to still deny that this is extortion. It's taking advantage of another country in a vulnerable situation. You can't get more vulnerable than the Ukraine is in right now, and trying to extract financial gain from that situation. It's exactly what happened. And even more blatantly, obviously wrong is attempting to achieve some payback for arms and support that was granted to the Ukraine as an ally, not loaned to them. There's a difference between loaning a country something and expecting payback, and that's the official agreement. Then the official agreement being, we're going to give you this support because you're being invaded by a dictator, a fascist. So don't go around trying to deny the extortion here. It's just insane for you to do so. Make sure you smash that like button whether you agree or disagree. I am here to have good faith, helpful conversations with you about these issues. I'll probably be taking some calls on the Discord server. If you're not a member of our Discord server, just click on our YouTube channel, the Discord link's there, or just Google Pangburn Discord server and you'll get connected. And also have some conversations amongst yourselves here. I think it's important for us to stick to, try to be as helpful as we can when we're engaging with others. So I hold up communication itself as a virtue, and it is one of the 6 Pangburn virtues. So, and with that, my corresponding maxim that goes with the communication virtue is that good faith and helpfulness are the minimum requirements for a fruitful dialectic. Good faith and helpfulness are the minimum requirements for a fruitful dialectic. Meaning, good faith simply means, in a broad sense, honesty. So being honest with your intentions. And in this case, it would be being honest with your intentions to have a good conversation. And then helpfulness, we should all know what helpfulness looks like, but within the framing of a dialectic, a conversation, helpfulness looks something like that might be counter to what you see a lot on the internet. Like if your interlocutor is struggling to give you the strongest form of their argument, give them a helping hand up, because you should want to contend with the strongest form of their argument. So this is what I mean by helping people. Francesco Pirolo says, you've got TDS, never mind. What do you think TDS is? Because to me, like, Trump derangement syndrome isn't like rationally, ethically, reasonably dealing with the facts of what Trump's doing and giving you coherent answers and rational answers, at least based on my ethics of where Trump has gone wrong and what Trump's guilty of ethically. I think TDS is more like Trump has created this like truth derangement in a lot of his followers, where you literally, it doesn't matter what Trump says or does. You will think it's true, honest, and good. You will just find a way to apologize for it. It's like when people try to apologize away for the obvious condoning of slavery in the Bible, and then, later endorsed by Jesus when he endorsed the old laws. I came to fulfill the laws of the prophets, not to dismantle them. So I see a lot of the same like blind faith religiosity in the Trump movement, which doesn't surprise me in a country full of Christians. But I see that same type of religious like faith commitment to Trump that I see in certain sects of Christianity. Not all sects of Christianity, but certain sects. So we're talking today of what Trump is guilty of, and feel free to disagree. I have a big problem with what he did in these negotiations, quote, the coercion, the manipulation of a vulnerable nation who's defending themselves against, Russia, who's been the enemy of the West, public enemy number one for a long time, for good reason, because he's a dictator, an oligarch. He murders political opposition. Like, this is well documented by many states. It's not just, the United States or Canada or the UK, but he's a well documented international criminal. And this should be of no shock. So, yeah, I mean, here are some details. Actually, I'm not gonna get into the details of the mineral deal right now. I did that last live stream, but some of this stuff should not be any news to anyone. January 6th, 2021, the Capitol riot. Trump encouraged supporters to march on the Capitol with false claims of election fraud. He failed to act quickly to stop the violence, leading to 5 deaths and numerous injuries. He was impeached for, quote, incitement of insurrection, end quote. Attempting to overturn the 2020 election, pressured election officials, including Georgia's state secretary of state, Brad Raffensperger, to, quote, find votes. Encouraged fake electors to submit false certifications, pushed baseless conspiracy theories that undermine trust in democracy. Mishandling of COVID-19, downplayed the virus despite private admissions that it was deadly, as recorded in the Bob Woodward tapes. Undermined public health measures, mocked masks, and pushed unproven treatments. Politicized the pandemic response, leading to over 400,000 U.S. deaths by the time he left office. So what portion of those deaths are on Trump's shoulders? That's obviously something that's up for debate. But as, the leader of the country, this is the kind of stuff you must wear on your back. It's your job during a pandemic, during COVID-19, to protect your citizens and to not speak loosely, not spread misinformation or disinformation, to spread good information, not spread anti-science. We're going to get into Trump's appointments as well and how they are completely counter to what Trump claims he's trying to do with trying to build a meritocracy. We're going to get into how he's a hypocrite and how his appointments to important positions in office are anti-meritocracy. Family separation policy, zero tolerance policy, ordered the separation of migrant children from parents at the border. Thousands of children were placed in detention centers with no system to reunite families. Some children were lost in bureaucratic limbo. Corruption and personal gains, used his presidency to funnel government business to his properties. Mar-a-Lago, Trump Hotel in D.C., attempted to host the G7 summit at his Doral resort before backing down. His businesses received millions. And that's the thing, before backing down. Trump's moral foundation seems to be whatever I can get away with is good. That's the sense I've gotten from Trump, from getting to know him more over the past 10 years here as he's become a political figure, that his moral calculus, his moral decision making seems to be, if I can get away with it, I'm going to do it. And then how does he justify this? Because sometimes you gotta, do stuff that's not going to be accepted as okay or good or righteous in order to win. And there's a lot of people out there that agree with this, think that that's an okay way of being. He's not by the way, like, anyone who still thinks that Donald Trump's a Christian or try to argues that he's like an embodiment of Christianity in any way, you are so lost. You're so lost on that. Just try to justify that. I'm not a Christian. I'm an atheist. I lack a belief in God. I always have. But it's not hard to see how irrational that belief is. How unsound of an epistemology you have to employ to believe that. Unbelievable to me. His businesses receive millions from foreign governments and lobbyists, raising emoluments clause concerns. Obstruction of justice, the Mueller report findings. The Mueller report outlined multiple instances where Trump allegedly obstructed the Russia investigation, fired FBI Director James Comey after he refused to drop the investigation into Michael Flynn, pressured White House officials and Attorney General William Barr to protect him. Charlottesville response: failed to clearly condemn white supremacists after the violent rally in 2017. His statements that there were very fine people on both sides was widely condemned. Why is this widely condemned? Even if he at some point said, the white supremacists need to be condemned, it wasn't clear enough. When you are a president in the highest position of office, you can't afford, there's too much at stake to speak loosely about shit, like saying oh, maybe bleach will, cure COVID-19, because there will be a select number of people, however small, that are going to go home and use bleach on COVID-19. You have to be careful with your words, because words matter. The way words affect people matters, especially if you are an icon to them. Weakening of democratic institutions. Regularly attack the media as the, quote, enemy of the people. Encouraged a culture of distrust in the judiciary, FBI, and intelligence agencies. Pressured the Justice Department to protect allies and punish critics. Withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accord, undermined global efforts to combat climate change, promoted deregulation that led to increased pollution. Now, you might be on the side of things where you think that leaving the Paris Climate Accord was a good idea. But surely you can agree that in some instances, in some cases around the world, you can see that climate change is having a detrimental effect. To agree that withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accord and undermining global efforts to combat climate change, what is that saying, diplomatically, to other countries about your country? In Iran and certain parts of the Middle East, it's getting so hot during some of the summer months that people literally die if they're caught outside. There are serious concerns, and it's not that we can't engineer our way out of these issues, but it should matter to you. It should matter to want to make a meaningful change here. And I could see that if the United States of America right now, today, was being affected like some places in the Middle East, that the attitude towards climate change would be a lot different. But it's not to that point where it's disrupting people's lives enough or displacing people. Sometimes it's important to think about others, think about how your actions, your industry might be affecting other people in other parts of the world. Make sure you guys smash the like button. I'm going to be here for a while. We're talking about where Trump has gone wrong, what he's guilty of. Sexual misconduct. He's been accused by over 24 women of sexual misconduct. He was found liable for sexual abuse and defamation in a lawsuit by writer E. Jean Carroll. So he was found liable. So O.J. Simpson was also found liable for the murder of his ex-wife, and the very unfortunate other victim of what was an obvious murderous rampage by O.J. Simpson that he got off on because there was major issues of racism and legitimate concerns about how police officers and known racist police officers were treating people who happened to be black during that time. And this, it was just a miscarriage of justice for that reason. And there's very few legislators, legal officials, lawyers, that would disagree that wasn't a miscarriage of justice. but anyways, like being found liable for sexual abuse and defamation isn't really any better. It's not really any better. So, yeah, Trump is guilty of sexual abuse and defamation at some level. At some level. Fraud in the Trump Organization. Found liable for business fraud in the New York civil case. Falsified business records to inflate his net worth for loans. And speaking about Ukraine, we can't forget about his first impeachment, where he pressured Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden in exchange for military aid. This led to his first impeachment for abuse of power and obstruction charges. We can get more into... well, let's get into the DEI hypocrisy here, right? Everyone's talking about DEI. Oh, DEI is so scary. You know, like it's the same principles in DEI that led to like women having equal and fair share of the workforce, for example. You know, dismantling these ideas that somehow women in general just aren't as effective in certain roles. That's being proven wrong time and time again, by the way. Yeah, Don, don't worry about the YouTube chat. Don't worry about kicking anybody, please. There's going to be trolls on YouTube. It's just part of it, but we're gonna get into the obvious hypocrisy. Oh, actually, first I gotta answer this call because it's my car's in the shop today. Travis speaking.
Hey Travis, Chris Clark from Canadian Tire Rental. You got your charger here for the check engine light diagnosis.
Yep.
So the technician did scan the code. Two of the codes that came up. One is the brake light switch. Looks like it's a faulty one, so we'll gotta get that one ordered in from my supplier. Right now it's coming out of Ontario, so the earliest that would touch down to me would be on Monday to get that replaced for you. And then the second one is from before. Declined the thermostat rationality. So that one's regarding replacing the thermostat.
Okay. So what are we looking at for costs?
Same cost that you were quoted last time. So the thermostat, the labor, and then the coolant, clean and flush would tax $547.21 for that.
$547.21, like $547.21. Okay. Now and then what else?
And yeah, the other one was that brake light switch, which we did order it from our supplier, but it's coming from Ontario, so the ETA is on Monday to get that part arriving to us. I can schedule you in for that service on Monday if that was urgent.
Okay. But you guys can do the 500 and whatever today?
Yeah, I can do the thermostat one today. If you want, I can find out what the ETA is. Are you in a really hurry
No, I'm
right now?
well, I'm not in a super hurry, but just will it be in the next couple hours here or?
I can't see why not. Let me just quickly ask him right now because my service manager stepped out.
Yeah.
Technician what the ETA.
Yeah, you don't have to give me ETA. I'm actually live on YouTube right now, so I'm so just if you guys could get it done and then let me know when it's done.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely get it done today. We'll get the parts ordered right now, and we'll give you a shout
Yep.
right away once
Yep.
it's ready to go.
Thanks a lot.
All right, sir.
Bye bye.
Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye.
Okay, good news, folks. It looks like I thought I was gonna have a few $1,000 bill today. Only about 500 and some dollars. Yay! Anyways, back to this. President Donald Trump has been a vocal critic of diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI) initiatives, describing them as illegal and immoral discrimination programs and public waste. He has taken significant steps to dismantle DEI programs within the federal government, including signing executive orders to terminate such initiatives and eliminate related positions. Despite advocating for merit-based appointments, President Trump has nominated individuals to key positions whose qualifications have been questioned, leading to allegations of hypocrisy. Notable examples: Matt Gaetz as Attorney General. In November 2024, President Trump nominated Congressman Matt Gaetz for the role of Attorney General. The nomination was controversial due to Gaetz' limited experience in managing a large federal agency and ongoing legal investigation into his and ongoing legal investigations into his conduct. Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense. Fox News commentator Pete Hegseth was nominated for Secretary of Defense. Critics, including Senator Elizabeth Warren, argued that Hegseth lacked the necessary qualifications for the position despite his military background. Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence. Former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard was appointed as Director of National Intelligence. Her nomination raised concerns due to her limited experience in intelligence operations, as the role oversees 18 spy agencies. Does anyone think these appointments are reasonable? And what about the most recent one, Dan Bongino? Trump's appointment of Dan Bongino as the Deputy Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation has ignited significant debate and concern. Bongino, a former New York City Police Department officer and U.S. Secret Service agent, is widely recognized for his role as a conservative media personality rather than for experience within the FBI. So let's go in a bit into Bongino just to get some details on one of these appointments. So Dan Bongino served as an NYPD officer from 95 to 99 before joining the U.S. Secret Service, where he worked from 99 to 2011, including a stint in the Presidential Protection Division under Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama. Following his law enforcement career, Bongino ventured into politics, running successfully for Congress 3 times as a Republican candidate. He later gained prominence as a conservative commentator, hosting the Dan Bongino Show podcast and the Fox News program Unfiltered with Dan Bongino until April 2023. Throughout his media career, Bongino has been a vocal supporter of President Trump and has propagated various conspiracy theories, including those related to the 2020 election and the COVID-19 pandemic. There was a line in here that's really important. Has been a vocal supporter of President Trump. That seems to be a prerequisite to work with Trump. You know, vocal supporter, kiss his ass. You know, that kind of thing will get you far in Trump's circle. Controversial appointment. The decision to appoint Bongino as the FBI's deputy director is unprecedented, as the role has traditionally been filled by individuals with extensive FBI experience. Critics argued that Bongino's lack of tenure within the Bureau, combined with his history of partisan commentary, could undermine the FBI's independence and credibility. His prior statements labeling the FBI as, quote, irredeemably corrupt and advocating for his disbandment have raised concerns about potential politicization of the agency under his leadership. Implications for the FBI. Bongino's appointment, alongside that of FBI Director Kash Patel, another figure with limited FBI experience, signals a significant shift in the Bureau's leadership dynamics. There is apprehension that these appointments may lead to increased political influence over the FBI's operations, potentially affecting its core mission of impartial law enforcement. The move has been described by some within the agency as a, quote, slap in the face, reflecting the unease among career professionals about the future directions of the Bureau. In summary, while Don Bongino's background includes notable law enforcement experience and a prominent media presence, his recent appointment as Deputy Director of the FBI has sparked debate due to its lack of direct FBI experience and his history of partisan positions. This development raises important questions about the future independency and integrity of the FBI under its new leadership. So what do you guys think of this appointment? Do you think this is a merit-based appointment? What merit does Bongino have to warrant this appointment? Anyone? What merit does he have? I'm curious to know. Trump just continues to show his ineptitude on the global stage, like his handling of Ukraine, the United States ally, basically doing Putin's bidding. As far as I can tell, Trump is just trying to get Ukraine also, like with regards to trying to end this war, trying to get Ukraine to give all the concessions and leave Russia with extra land and what Russia really started this war for. This is why I keep saying that Trump is just bending over for Putin. And people, you can't now say that you are an enemy of Putin or you stand in opposition to Putin if you continue to support Trump in what he's doing with Russia and the Ukraine. You can't do it. You just can't do it. You can't be consistent. You can't avoid hypocrisy. You just can't do it. Let me get to some of you guys' comments here. Someone's like, gonna have to mute this one too. Yeah, you wouldn't want to engage with someone who in good faith in a helpful way that disagrees with you, right? Let's go up here. Gangster activity. Pangburn stopped responding to chat and started yapping because he's getting cooked. You said that literally 1 minute into the stream, and there was only like maybe 10 or maybe 15 comments, and the comments were like guilty of 34 felonies. Funny how only haters spend time in this stream like you have nothing better to do. Like, what are you talking about? Gangster activity, you're showing yourself to be bad faith, dishonest with your comment. Kobe Shrank says, keep talking about climate change because you have zero idea what's going on. Don't just drop comments like this. It's very simple-minded to do so. I'm not calling you, Kobe, a simple-minded person. It's just a simple-minded thing to not add any context or information to support what you're saying. You should have said, okay, your initial comment, keep talking about climate change because you have zero idea what's going on. Follow it up with something substantive, like some information, some justifications to support your claim of what you're saying. Why do I not know what's going on? Right? How am I to learn, if you even care about that? But I'm sure you would want me to adopt your good information, right? So if that really is your goal, to try and spread the good information, take some time, put your work boots on, pull it up by the straps, and actually write out something coherent that includes your justifications for what you believe. This guy needs to be deported. Well, I'm in Canada, so I'm free from the mass deportation that's happening down there. MT says, hey, bud, he has not been convicted, which means not guilty either. I can convict him of being guilty. You can disagree with me. And he was convicted of 34 felonies, so it's not like he hasn't been convicted of anything. He was also found civilly liable for sexual misconduct, and, that's guilty. Trump has a probation officer. Get out of our country, dude, if you don't like it. Yeah, that's like fascistic, right? That's not consistent. That's not an attitude consistent with democracy. Get out of our country, dude, if you don't like it. You realize that democracies, the reason why they work is because the foundations of democracies allow for this discourse, allow for people to disagree and try to find some compromise, right? It's not about like, you shouldn't, if you're having feelings like people who disagree with us should just get out, you just might be in a cult. You just might be. I hate to say it, Joel, but you just might be in a cult. This guy needs to touch grass. I touch grass very often. I love nature. I live up in Canada where we have access to the greatest forests and trails you could ever imagine. I can also touch ocean here. I can also touch lake. Smokey says, that's not our problem. He is guilty of nothing. Carol has also claimed the same with several other different men, and she ugly, and civil is a different burden than criminal. She ugly? Man, Smokey, you need to erase, start from scratch. You got a lot of immorality happening here. Like, we're talking about sexual misconduct allegations, and you say she ugly. Like, you don't think people who might be considered ugly by others have ever been like sexually abused? Like, what are you talking about? Like, such an immoral, stupid take. Yeah, Preston says he was literally charged and convicted of 34 felonies. Every single thing he was charged for, he was found guilty of. What do you mean he hasn't been charged? Yeah. Why does this guy talking encourage child dismemberment? What? You live in your mom's basement? No, that's factually incorrect. People who do live in their parents' basement, though, if they were saying the same, critiques and applying the same ethics that I am today, it wouldn't make them any less right. And it wouldn't make them more right if they were living in a mansion that they purchased on the back of their own work. You understand that that's not how logic works. That's not how ethics works, or it shouldn't work. You're like, for example, just because Andrew Tate is rich, it shouldn't give any more moral weight to what he says, right? Oh, he has, I thought he had 10 Bugattis. He only has 2. Well, I'm not going to take him as morally seriously now. That doesn't make sense, right? So Dan, again, this rhetoric of a cult, right? Guess what? He still got elected. Don't like it, then move. You just might be in a cult. That's the kind of rhetoric that you see within cults, right? Like, you got to push out the negative doubters, and it's not consistent with democracy. You just might want like an oligarchy, or you might want something more like what Russia has. Maybe that's what you want, right? You on crack? No, I'm not on crack. Dude, I could legit criticize Trump, but this is madness. What part? Don't waste time writing meaningless comments. Include your justification, or else it's just a proclamation with no substance, right? Make sure you guys smash that like button so when I go live, you don't miss it. Jay says, quit being part of the problem. Kyle Grant says, this is all bullshit. Again, you just might be in a cult if you think this is all bullshit. Right? Everything I've read today is corroborated by at least 14 sources. It's of course, it's always possible that all the sources, all of these things in the world are corrupt and there's a big conspiracy to take Trump down. It's like, yeah, anything's possible. But that's why possibility ought not weigh into your epistemological standards. Plausibility should. Is it at all plausible that all of these 14 news sources and fact-checking sources are working in concert to take down Trump in this wide conspiracy? It's not plausible. It just isn't. You can try to demonstrate its plausibility, but I would suggest you have zero evidence that that is the case, if you rely on correspondence criteria at all. Oh, look, a Canadian cuck. Nice. Sean says, guilty of being the best president in history. So, again, after you write the comment, give the reasons why he's the best president in history so we can have a conversation. We can go back and forth. 3 Real Wayno says, go walk into oncoming traffic. Sir, you just might be in a cult. You just might be in a cult. If you want me to walk into oncoming traffic because you don't like the sounds of this information, which is true, demonstrable, it is going through the filter of my ethics. But because I have ethical disagreements with you, I should go walk into oncoming traffic. And I've been engaging in good faith, helpful way with you. Yeah, you just might be in a cult, sir. Brendan says, please just chill out, Trumples. Just accept that Trump has committed crimes, not a reflection on you personally. Yeah. Like, don't deny the crimes that are just easy to demonstrate factually. Don't take it as a personal attack on you. Take it as a challenge for you to justify, give your moral reasoning as to why it's good, why it's righteous to elect someone like Trump and to support certain decisions and behaviors of Trump that I've outlined here today. If you need to go back, just go back in the stream a little bit. Seth Hughes says, this is what you call gish galloping. No, it's not gish galloping. It would be gish galloping if you and I were in a conversation and I was throwing an endless list of propositions at you where you didn't possibly have enough time to respond to them. I'm giving you guys time to respond. This is not gish galloping. This is reporting. This is spreading factual information. This is me giving you my ethical opinion on that information. And then you have every right and opportunity to respond to that information. NS says, how many women bricklayers are there? For how long have women been allowed to be bricklayers? Or felt welcome to become a bricklayer? You're probably getting some bad information from people like Jordan Peterson, who would point to something like that as evidence that means that there is something necessarily less useful in a woman laying brick than men laying brick. That's just not demonstrably the case on an individual basis. So what we do see is that women are starting to be accepted and implemented into all fields, and they're accomplishing these tasks just as well as men. And the fact is that some women who come on to, say, a construction crew are going to be stronger than some of the men there. Right? You understand that strength differential is like a very wide, large base, full scope look at the difference between males and females. You shouldn't be applying that on an individual basis, like on a hiring basis. That's where people go wrong with all of this, like the difference between the sexes issue. Like I've been on construction sites before where the most productive members of the construction crew were women and female. Like, it's, I remember piling boards in a sawmill, and there was a female working there, and she was just more productive. She was less lazy. But for me to take that anecdote and then say, oh, that means we need to hire more females in here, would be stupid, right? We should assess this based on individuals and stop trying to do this pre-assessment based on whether they're female or male. It's very stupid. Anyone who really wants to make money in business doesn't do this. They're stupid when they do that. MT says, no shot, you just read headlines and get on stream and talk. Well, these weren't headlines. These are just summaries of the facts. If you want me to go through, if you have a problem with a specific issue that I reference, ask me to go into depth on that and we can have a talk about that. Yeah, Sean, when I say anti-science, when he's guilty of anti-science, he appointed the king of anti-science as health secretary, RFK Jr. Let's go into RFK Jr., shall we? The king of anti-science. Where's my RFK Jr. page? Oh. RFK Jr. has been a prominent figure in promoting anti-science views, particularly concerning vaccines and public health measures. Below is an extensive overview of his statements and actions throughout his life, including notable quotes and references to his appearance on platforms like the Joe Rogan Experience. So, vaccine safety and autism claims. Kennedy has long asserted a link between vaccines and autism, a claim that has been thoroughly debunked by the scientific community. So his peers constantly have tried to appeal to him about this, how stupid this belief is and how much it's been debunked. And he won't listen. He digs his heels in. He thinks he's just forever going to be, it seems to be digging his heels in on this and never accepting it. That makes him dangerous. That makes him someone who's going to cause vaccine hesitancy. Just being in the position getting to the position he's in gives credit to that history of vaccines cause autism claims. In 2005, in his article Deadly Immunity, published by Rolling Stone and Salon, Kennedy alleged a government cover-up of a supposed connection between thimerosal, a mercury-based preservative in vaccines, and autism. The piece contained factual inaccuracies, leading to Salon and to issue multiple corrections and eventually retracting the article altogether. Here's a quote from it. The government has been hiding. I was going to do RFK Jr.'s voice there, but I'm not going to do it. The government has been hiding the truth about vaccine safety to protect the pharmaceutical industry. Where have you heard this? I hear this on the side of the street by this crazy guy who's selling invisible pens. That's who I hear that from. Oh, but now he's a health secretary. 2014, Kennedy published thimerosal. Let the science speak. Let the science speak. No, I'm not going to do it. That's mean. Advocating for the removal of thimerosal from vaccines, despite scientific consensus that thimerosal in vaccines does not cause harm. Quote, "We need to get the mercury out of vaccines to protect our children's health." So this is all contributing to a large-scale vaccine hesitancy. Now the scale is even larger, that he's been appointed by Trump as health secretary. Can you imagine? This is Twilight Zone stuff. Like, the worst appointment for health secretary becomes the health secretary. Literally the worst guy. Alex Jones would probably be better, because at least he'd be like, well, I don't really know what the fuck's going on here with the science and stuff, so I'm gonna let the experts handle this. Like, you would hope that that's what Alex Jones would do with the very technical stuff. But Alex Jones might be just as bad, but he might even be better, right? But any celebrity, Kim Kardashian, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, fucking Taylor Swift, all of these people would be better appointments for the health secretary, because they would just lean on the scientific consensus. They would lean towards experts in the field, the scientific consensus. What does the consensus say? And that would make them a billion times less dangerous than someone like RFK Jr., who's a known peddler of anti-science. In fact, the king of anti-science. COVID-19 and public health measures. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Kennedy propagated several conspiracy theories and misinformation regarding vaccines and public health guidelines. 2020, he suggested that Anthony Fauci and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation were profiting from COVID-19 vaccines, and implied that Bill Gates would use vaccines to control the population. Quote, "Bill Gates has a terrifying vision for a future where vaccines are used to control our lives." 2021, Kennedy compared COVID-19 mask mandates to Nazi medical experiments during the Holocaust, a comparison widely condemned as inappropriate and offensive. Yeah, talk about, like, extremism, giving you a window to peer into his mind of where he sits on this issue of medically necessary mandates while going through a pandemic, right? So comparing this to Nazi medical experiments, a statement like this should have someone, after that, they can't be taken seriously. Their rhetoric has gotten to the point where it's basically to the rhetoric of Alex Jones, they're turning the frickin' frogs gay. Like, it's literally to that point. So like the direct quote from this, from RFK Jr. was, even in Hitler's Germany, you could hide in the attic like Anne Frank did. Like, that has something to do with what was going on with mask mandates. It's actually a very disgusting comment, morally deplorable comment. Just purely disgusting. HIV, I see a lot of people have ran away. Again, if you're running away from this information about RFK Jr., you just might be in a cult. You might be cult captured. That's not a good thing. You don't want to be cult captured. You don't want to be in a cult. You should not want to be in a cult. It's okay to challenge appointments of Trump. It should never mean that, like, you necessarily have to denounce everything Trump does just because you're reasonably challenging the appointment of RFK Jr., the king of anti-science, as the health secretary. HIV/AIDS denialism. Kennedy has echoed discredited theories questioning a link between HIV and AIDS. 2021, in his book, The Real Anthony Fauci, he referenced HIV denialists and questioned the established science connecting HIV to AIDS. Quote, "The link between HIVs and AIDS is not as clear-cut as we've been led to believe." Ridiculous. Appearance, and by the way, you just have to look this up. Like, study the scientific consensus. Go look it up. Fact check everything I'm saying. And you'll see how absurd it is what he is saying here. So his appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience in June 2023, for everyone that's saying, oh, RFK Jr. used to believe that, and now he doesn't anymore. Well, June 2023, Kennedy appeared on Joe Rogan's podcast where he reiterated several of his controversial views. Vaccines and autism. He maintained his stance on the alleged vaccine autism link. Quote, "There's a significant body of evidence suggesting that vaccines can trigger autism in susceptible children." So on one of the biggest platforms in the world, the king of anti-science is at it again, spewing nonsense to further drive vaccine hesitancy in people, which is deeply immoral. Vaccines are a beautiful thing that protect hundreds of millions, billions of people from serious disease. 5G technology. When he was on the Joe Rogan Experience, Kennedy expressed concerns about the health impacts of 5G wireless technology, a claim not supported by a shred of scientific evidence. Here's the quote. 5G technology is being rolled out without proper safety studies, and we have reason to be concerned about its effects on human health. What reason? There is no reason. Try to find a reason, a substantiated reason accepted by any body of scientific consensus. It doesn't exist. Medical racism conspiracy theories. Kennedy has targeted black communities with anti-vaccine propaganda, linking vaccination efforts to historical instances of medical racism. So as early as 2020, as recent as 2021, he appeared in a video titled "Medical Racism: The New Apartheid," which claimed that COVID-19 vaccination efforts were medical experiments on black people. Oh yeah, let's appoint this guy as the health secretary. You gotta be fucking kidding me. Like, it literally is the worst choice. Quote, "The same institutions that conducted the Tuskegee experiments are now asking black Americans to trust them on vaccine safety." Ooh, like, This shouldn't be taken seriously. This should be on like reality TV for people to laugh at. Comedy Central. Opposition to water fluoridization. Kennedy has opposed the water fluoridation of drinking water, a public health measure proven to reduce tooth decay. So 2017, he argued that fluoride in water is a neurotoxin that can lower IQ in children, a claim not supported by any scientific studies. None. Adding fluoride to water is a reckless experiment on the public's health. This guy is just like, he's a misinformation, disinformation peddler, anti-science peddler that seems to be dead set on causing fear in people regarding what they're consuming, things that are very good for their health. In 2024, he claimed that Lyme disease was highly likely a military weapon developed at the Plum Island Animal Disease Center. Quote, there's credible evidence that Lyme disease originated as a bioweapon experiment gone wrong. I don't know. Is that enough? Is that enough for everyone? Like, isn't that enough for you to say, like, at least, well, or can you at least say this much? Can you at least say it wasn't the most ideal appointment? Can we agree on that? I will be happy to go there with you. We can go to that place and say, okay, fine. At least it wasn't the best appointment. Okay, at least we can get that far. Everyone agree? Yay, we agree. It wasn't the best appointment. And now eventually I would like you to come to the side of like, yeah, it was probably the worst appointment. but we can move at least a little closer. Mace Starwick says, what up, Mace? Are you a mechanic? Because I need a little hands-on service under the hood. You have to pay for that. I charge $9.95 an hour. Gen X Dave says you are reading BS propaganda. Okay. Again, all of my sources here are corroborated by at least 14 other news outlets, fact-checking outlets, unless they're all working in concert. Big conspiracy theory. But I don't think that's very likely. I think it's possible. Anything's possible, but is it plausible at all? No, because we have no evidence that that's taking place. Bobby Wisdom says, it seems like you were kind of doing the same thing. You have no real experience in anything you were talking about, but here you are talking about it. Yeah, I'm giving you my opinion based on my ethics, right? I can outline my ethical standards if you want, but basically my moral quest is to maximize well-being for myself and those around me. And in this case, you all are those around me. So by sharing the information I'm sharing, I'm trying to get good information to you with the hopes of maximizing your physical, mental, and social health. That's what I'm doing. And then to try to discern good information from bad information, I'm using a correspondence criteria of truth, which is the same thing that science is built on. The idea that we're trying to make sure that propositions correspond to the objects in reality in reference. So if the proposition is the Statue of Liberty exists in New York City, that would be true if we verify that the Statue of Liberty actually does in fact exist in New York City. And then for justification with correspondence criteria, like I just showed you, the justification is almost always going to be evidence of some kind. So, I'm always looking for evidence to justify my positions, like we've been going through today. I've been giving you guys evidence. And ultimately you have to believe. You have to be convinced of these propositions, which I am. So my epistemological standards are met. What epistemological standards do you have? And why are they coming up with different answers? Why are they causing you to say, like, everything that's being said here is BS propaganda? What's causing you to say that? Who's telling you that? Is it just because it's running against your narrative of what you wish was true? Well, if that's the case, I don't think you're operating with a very sound epistemology. Yeah. So we already went through the issue of how there's just pure hypocrisy in the Trump administration right now with regards to how they're so anti-DEI, so pro-meritocracy. And these appointments are like the opposite of meritful, the opposite of these people have the merit, they've earned this position. They're not that at all. They're like a, well, what would the Trump acronym be? They're just basically, if you're friends enough with Trump and Trump can justify it to his deeply captured, I would say it's, for some of you, it's literally cult level. If he can justify it to his cult, as long as he can do that, then he's going to appoint those who have kissed his ass the hardest. That's what it seems is going on here. Like the more Elon Musk kissed his ass, the more Donald Trump was including him. That's just seems to be how Donald Trump operates. And unfortunately, his ethical standards, his moral standards seem to be, I think what's good and what's right is what I can get away with. And that's a bad, dangerous soup. All right. Well, thank you for joining me today, everyone. I'm going to sign off for now. Make sure you drop a like button so you don't miss my streams. I'll probably be on a bit later to go at this again. We're going to continue critiquing Donald Trump's presidency, regardless of whether or not his hardcore, cult following doesn't like it. I know not all Trump supporters are part of that cult, but a great number of them are. But we're going to be continuing to challenge Trump through his presidency. So thank you for sticking around, and we'll catch you next time. This is Pangburn.